This is Faux-Authentic History.
Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm Brian Young.
And I'm Holly Fry.
Holly?
Yeah.
How do you like hearing about things like Thanos and the Infinity War?
I like it heaps. We should do a live show of that.
Yeah, we should. So for those of you who were at Salt Lake Comic-Con, you'll know that this was the live show that we did while we were there, and it was great. We had a packed room, and everybody was really excited to hear about Thanos, and the recording got messed up.
Yeah, it just wasn't great. So rather than make people listen to that, which had a lot of static and some mess that Brian tried desperately to fix, but really it became a losing battle, we're just going to re-record it so you'll have a nice, clean sounding version of it.
Yeah, no, that's the advantage of having a scripted, very scholarly podcast versus just people talking off the cuff.
Sure. Yeah, it is. It's easy to replicate the information. It won't ever be quite the same as when we do a live show, but pretty close. So those people that saw us live get their own unique experience that no one else will ever know in this case.
Well, and it's, there's always like Q&A afterwards and things that we wouldn't put on the episode anyway, so they definitely got a more special experience regardless.
Yeah. And now everybody can have the story, though.
Yeah. So this is actually going to be a two-part story, and it'll be interesting. But to start with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet, we need to know a little bit about Thanos first. Now, Thanos was a demigod born on Titan, and his father was the Mentor. And Thanos murdered his mother at the age of 10, and at the age of 18, he took his obsession with death a step further and killed a young girl. Before authorities could apprehend him, Thanos fled Titan to the outer rim of the galaxy, and for 80 years he honed the great power that he had, killing in those regions to understand the depths of that power.
And after this 80-year sojourn, he returned home to Titan, and then he subjugated the planet with his dark might.
According to Captain America, Thanos was one of the most dangerous foes the Avengers ever faced. At one point, Adam Warlock, who was a cosmic hero with the power of the Infinity Gem known as the Soul Stone, fought alongside the Avengers to prevent Thanos from achieving his dream of limitless power. Thanos went toe-to-toe with Thor, the Thing, and Adam Warlock, and Adam Warlock was killed in that battle, but his spirit returned through the Soul Gems.
The second time that Thanos fought the Avengers, he was actually killed. But where our story begins, he was resurrected by death to rebalance life and death in the galaxy. But Thanos was in love with death, and he didn't want to just rebalance life and death. He wanted to become omnipotent before destroying half of the universe's population to win her love.
Thanos wagered that the Silver Surfer, who was a hero that traveled the cosmos on his silver surfboard to safeguard the galaxy, would be the first to oppose him if his true plan became known. So Thanos came up with a plan to distract the Surfer.
So to start, Thanos challenged Silver Surfer to tour a series of planets with him. And these were planets whose populations Thanos wished to destroy, but he didn't share that part of the information. And by transporting Silver Surfer from one planet to another in a specific order, the Silver Surfer had no idea that he was actually carrying bacterial plagues from one planet to the next. And it wasn't until they arrived on a planet named Solaria and half of their population was quickly wiped out that Surfer figured out what exactly was going on.
Yeah, this was sort of a big cosmic game of smallpox blankets. And Surfer just had no idea that he was involved in this at all, which is, the way all these things kind of go usually, right? Like, you don't know that you're carrying these things that are fine in one area but detrimental somewhere else.
Yeah, and Thanos had carefully planned all of this out to ensure that each population was ravaged.
Thanos left Silver Surfer to deal with the fallout of this genocide, and then continued carrying on with his plan by taking over the space fleet of his granddaughter Nebula. He wounded her severely, and then used her ship to travel the galaxy in support of his aims.
And at this point, his plan to kill half of the universe didn't seem apparent. So Death and her minions demanded to know why Thanos hadn't immediately ended half of the universe and given them the souls that they required. The task, he said, is best taken slow. And this is what he told his mistress Death. Quote, move too quickly and all the forces of the universe will ally themselves against us.
So Thanos assembled the pieces of his plan so that he could play a game of galactic proportions in a methodical way. And the next step was for him to take the Silver Surfer out of the equation permanently.
Thanos challenged Silver Surfer to come to the planet Paraxylon to face him. And this was a scientifically advanced world that had solved its own energy crisis with subterranean geothermal bands that crisscrossed the planet. This was a really effective energy system, but it was unstable. And it was exactly this reason that Silver Surfer was on guard. He assumed that Thanos would use this power system as a means of destroying the population.
Thanos goaded the Surfer into a fight where the Surfer had to use increasing amounts of energy to defeat Thanos, and this ended up causing the reaction Thanos had wished for. Silver Surfer used all of his energy to destroy Thanos, but this triggered a reactor overload, killing half the population of the planet. This took an emotional toll on the normally stoic Silver Surfer, as Thanos had manipulated him to be partly responsible for the massive destruction of lives on 2 planets that he was aware of now.
The reactor overload was also a ruse. Thanos actually used it to fake his own death. He crafted bones that matched his own, and he left those in the wreckage for Silver Surfer to find, so that Thanos could then go about his work destroying half of the galaxy without the Silver Surfer dogging his every step.
Thanos then embarked on a quest to reunite the 6 Infinity Stones. Now, the Infinity Stones were older than 1,000 billion years, and they were once a single unit, a sentient being of limitless power. And at the time of creation, this was the only living thing that existed in all realities. In its solitude, it shattered itself, giving life to reality in all of its forms, leaving behind the 6 Infinity Stones.
The first Infinity Stone that Thanos went after was in the possession of the In-Betweener, the physical representation of the duality of the universe. This is a cosmic being that represented both good and evil, chaos and order, life and death. And he had unspeakable power, and Master Chaos and Lord Order sought to balance him in a prison. And he wore on his forehead the Infinity Stone that controlled the soul.
The In-Betweener had become the prisoner of Lord Chaos and Master Order, and the only prison that could contain a being like the In-Betweener was within the nexus of reality, and this was the point where Chaos and Order met and melded. The actual prison of the In-Betweener was a red ball of energy, and it rested between the polarities of actuality.
And Thanos traveled to this prison, he destroyed the sentries, and he pleaded with the In-Betweener. He explained that he was not happy in the employ of death, this was of course another ruse, and that he would release the In-Betweener if he would just protect him from death. So this flat-out lie basically was his whole plan.
The In-Betweener agreed, though, and he and Thanos both channeled their great cosmic powers to the destruction of the cell that held the In-Betweener. Now, the In-Betweener knew that Thanos was not to be trusted and turned on him once he was free, but on this plane of existence outside of his cell, his power was actually inert. So Thanos beat the In-Betweener senseless and stole the soul gem from his face and escaped with his first Infinity Stone.
The second Infinity Stone that Thanos sought was the Power Gem, and this was held on the planet Tamarata by an elder named Champion. Champion was an immortal who controlled the planet and used it as his personal battleground. And with the Power Stone in his possession, there was no way that he could be defeated by any forces on the planet.
Champion was a brute of a humanoid, twice the height of Thanos, with pale white skin, wide eyes, and pink hair. Set in his forehead was the red Power Stone. And Champion had no idea of the gem's worth, however. He credited his success to his own prowess in battle, not realizing that the worthless trinket he wore on his forehead was actually the true source of his power.
This is like a really high-level, godlike moment of Dunning-Kruger effect. He just thinks he's super awesome at everything, and in fact, no. And after returning from the polarities of actuality, Thanos traveled to Tamarata and he challenged Champion to combat. Now, Thanos knew that he couldn't stand against Champion toe-to-toe, so he devised yet another ruse to outsmart Champion. So to start, Thanos fought smarter than Champion, dodging blows and then using Champion's momentum against him.
Thanos then engaged a force field that Champion found nearly impossible to break. Champion smashed his fists into the invisible shield, angry that Thanos would use technology to cheat in their contest. And just as Thanos' shield was ready to collapse, Champion actually backed off at this point. He hurtled himself into the orbit of the planet and turned his body into a giant missile that would impact the planet with the power of like 1,000 A-bombs.
Thanos, though, teleported away and let Champion destroy his own planet. There was nothing left but Thanos and Champion floating in an asteroid field. Champion challenged Thanos to combat for his ship, but Thanos refused, claiming that doing so would just bore him. He'd already proven his mettle in battle, so Champion begged Thanos to at least take him to another planet, to which Thanos agreed for a price. And that price was the Gem of Power.
Champion offered it willingly, and Thanos used the tractor beam on his throne to carry Champion to the closest planet. Thanos disengaged the tractor beam high above orbit and let Champion fall into the planet's atmosphere. And their agreement never actually stipulated a soft landing.
And next, Thanos sought the stone that controlled time, which was held by an elder named the Gardener. And the Gardener was one of the oldest beings in the cosmos and had lived for millennia. He had been convinced to use his powers in previous conflicts, including against Galactus at one point to save life, but he really preferred the peace of his garden to the chaos of the universe. And it was in that garden that Thanos found him.
Thanos and the Gardener spoke as equals, and this is something that Thanos didn't do with the other elders that he'd bested. This was like a deference of respect that the other elders didn't receive from Thanos. Thanos treated him with a lot of dignity, and the two of them walked together in the Gardener's garden and discussed their competing dreams. For the Gardener, his goal was to live in the most beautiful garden in the galaxy. For Thanos, it was merely to please Death, to win her love. And they knew that one of them would end up dying in these conflicts for their competing dreams.
The Gardener fought valiantly, using his gem to try to bind Thanos with his plants and his garden. But Thanos used the power gem to augment those attempts, and then the plants that were supposed to try to kill Thanos actually ended up killing the Gardener.
And this is what gave Thanos control of his third Infinity Stone.
The fourth stone in Thanos' quest was the Space Stone. And the Space Stone allowed control of space itself to warp matter and teleport anything, anywhere, instantly. And this stone was in possession of an elder named the Runner. His real name was Gilpet Perdon, and he was more than 5 billion years old. He had the appearance of a human male, but his body was actually composed of a flexible and metallic gold substance.
Thanos used his floating throne to pinpoint where the Runner might be and went to those coordinates, but with the help of the Space Stone, the Runner was able to destroy Thanos' conveyance.
The Runner literally ran circles around Thanos, tearing apart pieces of his ship, and he truly thought that he was going to be able to defeat Thanos. But his control of the Space Stone was purely subconscious. He really didn't understand the true nature of the infinite power the way that Thanos did. And when the Runner stopped to gloat, Thanos used the power of the Time Stone to age the Runner 1,000,000 years in an instant.
And, I mean, it seemed like it could have been more than that, because, I mean, here's a being that lived 5 billion years. What's another million? But whatever it did, it turned the Runner geriatric. And with the Runner sapped of his mental and physical faculties in this geriatric state, Thanos simply plucked the purple stone from his forehead. And then he used the time gem to revert the Runner into an infant. And it was this infant Runner that he would use to bargain for the fifth Infinity Stone.
So the fifth stone was the yellow reality stone that had the ability to bend reality and grant wishes, even if those wishes were completely improbable. And it was in possession of the Collector. The Collector was an elder of the universe named Tanalir Tyvan, who had a shock of white hair and wore a blue high-collared cape.
He was fascinated with the acquisition and collection of rare objects in the galaxy. Anything he could add to his museum and zoo, he would. For many years, he'd been in possession of the Yellow Reality Stone, but was not capable of manipulating or using it. His reality was too focused on the present, and ideas of the metaphysical were beyond him, so the stone just did not work for him.
And when Thanos arrived with something rare indeed to offer, an infant runner, the Collector was happily willing to trade the Reality Stone, along with an assurance that whatever it was Thanos was planning, that he would just leave the Collector and his collection alone.
Thanos agreed, trading the infant for the Reality Stone. It was at this point that Thanos revealed to the Collector that the transformation of the runner into an infant was only temporary. And at that point, the runner regrew to his normal, full-sized form and was enraged at his fellow Elder, so the runner ended up beating the Collector to a pulp, although both did survive this encounter with Thanos. It really feels like dealing with Thanos is sort of like walking into the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I mean, he's always like several steps ahead, and he's always got some completely devious and dark plan that he is trying to lure virtually everyone he comes in contact into. So the last stone was the Blue Mind Gem, and this was capable of greatly enhancing the mental and psionic capabilities of its bearer. It was in possession of the Grand Master himself, who challenged Thanos to a game of wits for its control. The Grand Master was an elder who had dedicated his entire life to games and personal amusement.
So the Grandmaster had rigged the Mind Stone to teleport to a random location if his vital signs ended before the game was played, and in this way forced Thanos to play for the highest stakes imaginable. He'd concocted this game that would place Thanos and the Grandmaster in a digital environment in battle suits, and whoever scored the first kill shot would kill the other and own all of the Infinity Stones.
Naturally, both of these combatants, who were not exactly lacking in confidence, counted on being smarter than the other one. They donned their helmets and they entered the digital realm to fight. And they shot each other back and forth, but neither struck a fatal blow. Thanos finally got an edge on the Grandmaster, but the Grandmaster had actually sabotaged Thanos' suit. So when Thanos fired what would have been the kill shot, his suit encased him in a silicon-based fungus that was designed to kill Thanos.
The Grandmaster assumed that he won at this point and didn't realize that Thanos was not actually his opponent. Thanos had used the other Infinity Stones in tandem to create a robotic copy of himself capable of competing in this game in this digital space, so that his corporeal form would remain outside the combat and be able to destroy the computer, kill the Grandmaster, and take the final stone.
So with the power of all of the stones in the Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos went back to Death and asked to be her consort. And he erected a throne of bones beside hers, and he was pretty much ready for this relationship to play out. But she refused to accept him to be her consort. With his new power, he had elevated himself to a status far superior to hers, and she wouldn't allow herself to be anything to him but an obedient servant.
This enraged Thanos. He knew he could use the Infinity Stones together to force her to submit to his will, but what was love without it being granted willingly by the person you loved? No, he would need to come up with a new plan in order to make her love him, or so he thought.
And that is when the Infinity War began.
And that's where we're going to cliffhang you a little bit.
There's a whole lot more to come. And it's really interesting to me that all of this trouble really just started over a man with a crush that was unrequited.
Yeah, it's a long walk from like, please love me, let me destroy half the universe. But I guess, toxic, male toxicity is something that we deal with and Thanos more than others. I mean, it's more dangerous when they have power.
Well, he's
right?
definitely sort of the epic scenario of that, right?
Yeah, definitely. So we'll be back next week with part 2. And I don't have any mail offhand. We have received some mail, but it's all very much future show topics, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on things. So, Holly, where
I'm
can people
online.
find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Surliest Girl, and I'm on Instagram as SurlyGirly5, and you can visit my day job podcast, Stuff You Missed in History Class, at our website, which is missedinhistory.com, and that will connect you to all of our social media through there. And then I also do some Star Wars things with you on Full of Sith.
Yeah, no, so if you want to listen to Holly and I talk about Star Wars, Full of Sith is the place to do that. You can do that at fullofsith.com. You can also find me at on Twitter at Swankmatron, and everywhere else. If you just type in Swankmatron on just about any website, from Instagram and Facebook to Patreon and wherever else, you'll find me there. If you'd like to send us an email and get a hold of us at Fothentic History, you can go to fothentichistory.com. We have a contact form there if you'd like to fill that out and send us mail. We love to hear from you. And, we would love it if you wouldn't mind leaving a review wherever you listen to the podcast, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever else the podcast is available to you. Or you could just write about it on your own blog. We'd love that too. So unless there's anything else, Holly, then we'll leave it there, and we'll be back with the Infinity War.